It's time to rethink what's possible, a podcast from Milwaukee School of Engineering. I'm your host, Chris Gauthier-Dickey, head of MSOE's Derrick School of Advanced Computing. Today I get to talk to Luke Leonhard, a chief of staff at Google DeepMind and an MSOE alum. He stopped by after his keynote at this year's MSOE AI Week, presented by Northwestern Mutual Data Science Institute. This is going to be fun, so let's get into it. So thanks for joining the podcast and welcome back to campus.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
So let's start at the beginning. Tell us about your experience at Milwaukee School of Engineering.
Gosh, it feels like both yesterday and quite a while ago. I started at MSOE in the year 2000 and I graduated in 2004. The degree was Business and Computer Systems, which I think now is titled the MIS program. It was in the Rader School of Business. And I loved MSOE. I lived on campus all 4 years. I still remember being both at RWJ and MLH halls and just being in a small university in the center of a big city like Milwaukee was sort of a perfect combination for me to have hands-on attention in the classroom, but also having a lot of experiences outside of school. And I always love to come back and see how the campus is growing. So thanks again for having me.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's changed so much over the years. It's kind of amazing to see the differences. So what initially sparked your interest in AI or tech?
I think originally I would say it was my parents. My mom actually worked in information technology at a hospital in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And early in my life, I always was interested in kind of what she was working on. We had a computer at home very early because she had the ability to work remotely some of the time, which was very unique back then. And throughout my entire school before MSOE, I was always very interested in how I could use technology. And then, of course, even though I was in the business program at MSOE, technology is everywhere on campus. We had the laptop program and all of the classes. It was really great. So my interests always lied there. I love music and the arts as well, but I knew that I didn't want to make my job be my passion for music as much because I just wanted that to always be something fun that I could do to relax. And I thought the pace of technology was fun to have it be part of my work where I could go and help things move along faster. I definitely never thought I would work in big tech or that I would find myself in California. I always expected to kind of stay close to Milwaukee or Wisconsin with my family, but I had an opportunity to work in applied technology here in Wisconsin for several years after graduating. And then when the opportunity came to build foundational technology at a company like Google, where companies in Milwaukee would apply that technology, I felt like it was an opportunity that I couldn't turn down. So that's where I started to go into big tech and working with Google. But my technology interest has been just from when I was a really little kid until today.
Yeah, very nice. So in your day-to-day life at Google DeepMind, what do you do?
So I'm a chief of staff for the audio and internationalization teams. And what that means is that I spend a lot of time, I invest most of my time in how to set up the team to get things done as effectively and efficiently as possible. We have a lot of people that work on Gemini models for the audio modality. And we just want to make sure that we're organized and that we're working on improving our AI models as efficiently as possible. So I work across the managers and the directors and the VP of the team and make sure that we have priorities set and areas to work on for the next year. I know a lot of people think that AI has these huge algorithmic leaps of quality often, but most of the time it's hill climbing on the existing technology and making incremental improvements to make it better for users. So while of course we do invest, part of my time is making sure that we have investments in these big leaps. I spend a lot of time making sure that we're continuing to climb the hills on the most important things for our users that use the Gemini models on the audio side.
Nice. So specifically, it's around the audio part, like when you want to talk to Gemini and it responds back to you. Is it sort of both sides, like voice, like understanding the voice, and then how Gemini speaks back to you?
That's a great question. And at Google, audio has had like elements of AI for a long time, pre-Gemini models. But anytime you talk to Google or Google talks to you, AI is part of the picture. So if you're asking Google Maps to get you directions and you're speaking to Google Maps, that's using AI. If Google Maps is telling you to turn left on Broadway and it gets all that pronunciation correct, that's AI as well. And also, if you're watching YouTube videos or you're using Google Meet and there's automatic captions on the videos, those are generated because we're recognizing the speech that is in those videos and putting those accessible captions on the program. So anytime that you're talking to Google or Google is talking to you, even things like the Google Assistant or the latest products like Gemini or Search Live, those are the areas that I've been focusing on the most.
So thinking about it, it does feel like audio, like comprehension has gotten really good lately. Like when I think of captioning or things like that, it's just seems so much more accurate, or pronunciation is so much better than it used to be.
Yeah,
is that
absolutely.
something y'all work on?
Yeah, the technology for captions and speech recognition and speech synthesis at Google has been around and used AI for a long time. So you can imagine that Google Maps has been able to tell you to turn left for a long time. But the voices that you hear are so much more natural. They get the pronunciations more correct more of the time. And also on captioning, like you mentioned with YouTube videos, there used to be commentary in YouTube videos about the bad captions of YouTube videos. Yeah. And now you don't see that as often. And a lot of that is to be credited to large language models, because these large language models have so much better of an understanding of language generally, and we can apply that to any modality. So It's really exciting to make sure that we get the nuances of language correct, both in the captioning world. And I love hearing the latest voices that we have in Gemini Live when they can kind of sound excited, they can sound empathetic and sad. It's so much easier to talk to a computer for a long period of time. I couldn't imagine doing that a few years ago, but now you can have long running 15, 20-minute conversations with Gemini Live, and it feels very natural. It's come a long way since the press 1 for this option, press 2 for that option.
Yeah, exactly right. Conversation has such a different flow because you listen to somebody, you might interrupt them.
Exactly.
And the response time has to be faster. So like, is it that we use different model to talk to respond to somebody that versus like, I don't know, the deep thinking models when we're doing audio?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, the naturalness and the conversation that we're having even today, people say, exactly. As we interject and have this podcast. And that's sort of what language models lacked in the past. So if you're listening to Notebook LM, which is an AI-generated podcast tool, you will actually hear the two virtual podcast folks talk back and have those moments where they say, okay, like those sort of natural human interactions. Yeah. It's so much easier to listen to versus just having one person drone on.
Like talk one at a time, taking turns.
Exactly, that unnatural turn taking. And we've seen on the education side, it's very difficult. And I think a testament to MSOE, if you had a large lecture hall where just a recorded video of a professor was speaking, the ability to learn from that is very low. But if you have a small class size and you're able to talk back and forth and you get those affirmations, like the students are saying, yes, we get it. There's those those moments of nodding. It really helps. So the technology has come a long way in terms of that back and forth to make it more natural for sure.
Very nice. So your talk was about insights from working at the center of AI. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I have been at Google for 13 years now. So I noticed that just as we were coming to campus, I looked back to see how long I had been at Google. And I would have said 5 or 6 years, but time flies. And it's been a really wonderful experience to be at a company that is sort of at multiple centers of technological revolutions. When I started at Google, there was a lot of pressure for server-based, web-based applications. At the time, Google Docs was brand new, and we would show demos of having multiple cursors co-editing a single document. And people that were used to, client-side Microsoft Word tools, they were like, whoa, this is mind-blowing.
We're both working on the same document.
Exactly.
I can see where the other person is.
There's no copy version 1, 2, 3. It's all of this live internet document. It was so amazing. And then there was this era past that where there was this mobile boom where it was like, okay, yes, we have email and we have documents and people go and use them on computers, but the world really changed with smartphones, where all of a sudden it was like, you have Google in your pocket.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to be like in my career at Google where I saw that really take hold. And now we're in this third wave. And it's, again, the same company, same moving fast, but the wave now is around these AI tools and how AI can make our lives better. And it's been really fun to continue to advance that technology in what we say is bold and responsible ways. Right. And I really never would have thought as a student at MSOE that my career path would make it all the way to this avenue. I really loved living in Milwaukee, and I expected I was going to stay in Wisconsin most of my life. But it's been a fun ride. And it's interesting to always come back. Just as I was coming here, they asked me if I'd like a glass of water, or to drink some water from the bubbler, which makes me laugh. And it's been a while since I've heard that. But I do kind of love the dichotomy of my life where I get to come back and spend time with family in Wisconsin and see how the technology that when you're in San Francisco or Silicon Valley, everything is part of this technology bubble. Right. And it's nice to come back to Wisconsin and say, yes, technology is important, but there's other parts of life to enjoy.
Right, absolutely.
Go fishing once in a while and it reminds things. It's a good combination.
Yeah, I love it. So what are some of the biggest shifts and changes you're seeing with AI right now? I know there's a lot of talk about agentic AI, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the pace of the shifts in the AI world are much faster than what I've seen in other technology waves that we just talked about. I'm really excited. Of course, I work on the Gemini models at Google, so it's fun to look around San Francisco in my home city and I see very front-running AI technologies that are making a big difference. Like you see driverless cars with Waymo. Right. Those are very commonplace in San Francisco. Another thing that I love seeing just as people using this technology is it's fun to watch people have long-standing audio conversations with this technology where you never would have thought to be able to do that with that agentic sort of pace. I have absolutely seen people in coffee shops in San Francisco talking to their computers, essentially sort of pseudo-dictating or commanding the computer what to do instead of having to sit down and use their fingers to type. So it's really cool to watch someone write out an entire email with their voice and then get a response and say, polish that up for me, and those sort of things. Right. I've seen this at coffee shops that people are using Google's technology to do that. It's really exciting.
That's really, really cool. Do you think there are some things that are being misunderstood about what's happening with AI today?
Related to AI, I think one of the biggest challenges isn't about what's being understood or misunderstood. I think it's more around awareness. There's so many people in my daily life when they say, I'm not even really paying attention to that AI stuff. And there's also a lot of people that think AI is just Google Gemini, Claude, and ChatGPT. But I really do think that AI is becoming a bigger part of our lives, in our personal life, in our work lives. It's going to be sort of present throughout. It's sort of like saying back before credit cards were commonplace everywhere, if you were a business person and you said, you know what, I'm just going to keep using cash, I think it'll be fine. You sort of miss that wave. And same thing with being able to have a web presence or be accessible with a mobile phone. These things were new and different from what we were used to at the time, just like AI is new and different from what we were expecting. So I'm not sure I could comment on whether it's understood or misunderstood, but the awareness of saying you know what, I'm going to spend a little bit of time and see what's out there. Yeah. And there's so many, maybe this is a hidden gem of Google, but I use Notebook LM every single day. And it's a tool, an AI tool that essentially allows you to upload content, whether it's PDFs or websites, news articles, and then you could ask questions directly about that specific content. And I'm a lifelong learner. I went from MSOE to Marquette. I went to law school, and now I'm studying part-time at Oxford. And I don't know how I would be able to go back to school If I rewind time from when I was at MSOE and I had to digest everything myself and take notes completely by hand to get the information, in a digestible format. I remember directly writing out outlines of information to study for tests. And it's so nice now that I can put information into a notebook and say, give me a mind map of this. Oh, you know what? I didn't understand this concept around reinforcement learning. Give me a video overview. Explain this concept to me. And I can talk directly to an AI podcast and they can help me understand a concept more. It's such an accelerator to learning. And I think Notebook LM is a hidden gem. That's just one example. I think if people spend a little bit of time seeing what challenges they have in their daily life, there's probably some AI tool that will help them achieve their goals. And it can be very customized and exciting. I mentioned today in my talk, one of the beautiful things about this technology is that instead of having to you can, of course, still go and search for your answers and find the right blue link with the information. You can also get answers directly by asking Search Live and querying those answers directly and getting the answer directly brought to you. But also you can tell AI a little bit more about yourself, and it can be kind of an agentic helper to getting you to where you want to be. So an example for me was I was studying law school. I was training to run a marathon, and I work at Google, and my schedule at Google is pretty hectic. So to be able to tell AI, I want to be a really good member of my family. I want to be a present uncle. And I also want to train for a marathon, do good at my job, and I want to graduate with honors from law school. Help me do that. And I think AI can digest all of that information and help me build this customized plan for Luke. But I don't think you're going to find some other plan on the internet that says, here's a person that's working in big tech, that's running a marathon and also is in law school and would like to be an uncle for his nieces and nephews in Wisconsin. That sort of combination, it's like, wow, this tool helped me get this done. And
like really personalized.
Yeah. And I think we're just at the very forefront of this. You've seen personal context being added to Google Gemini. There's more and more tools that you can see out there that are like, this is going to help me with my personal goals more than having to burden myself with like managing all of that on my own. It definitely feels like a helpful assistant in a way that's way beyond the Google Assistant of the time where you could say, help me turn off the lights or increase the temperature of this room.
Right.
We're talking about like, help me train for a marathon and not miss meetings and not forget a birthday, kind of all in one. It's really a great sidekick to have.
So for students at Milwaukee School of Engineering, or those interested in AI careers, what would you think that they should be focusing on today? And for example, a first year who's starting in 2026.
Yeah. Oh man, to be able to start school at 2026, these lucky kids. When I was a kid, it was a little bit different, but I would absolutely tell people starting school now that they should use AI and technology in every class in some sort of way. If a teacher or professor says that AI is not allowed in the classroom for a specific class, have them reach out to me. I will convince them otherwise. It is not helpful to not have students learn how to use these tools and be well versed in them. And if I were giving advice to any of the class starting now, I would say to enjoy this time and make sure to have what I would call joyful balance in your life. Of course, focus on school, but part of being in this community of school is that you're going to meet people and you're going to be part of this community and you're going to learn skills both in and out of the classroom. So school is such an important foundational concept for me and for just people to take steps in their careers, but don't try to rush through it. There's so much time to focus on the career aspects. Of course, internships are great, but be sure to enjoy the moments of being in the classroom, getting to interact with other students, and really build things on your own terms. One thing that I really loved about MSOE, and I think it's similar at Google as well, you have a lot of latitude to build and create within the context of your work or your school. and take advantage of that. So if you're learning marketing and you're also interested in running, or if you're learning finance and you also someday want to run a bakery, bring that into the classroom and do it all together. I think that's really cool. The relationships that you make at MSOE will be with you forever. At the keynote presentation today, there were 2 alumni that were in my classes with me. Some work at Direct Supply, some work at Brady. They're all around, and you're going to have those connections for your entire life. So enjoy it. And I think that's maybe it. Don't eat too much food at Roscoe's if Roscoe's is still around. And yeah, enjoy being part of the Milwaukee community too. It's really a blessing to have a school like MSOE so integrated into the city. I remember I used to volunteer at the Riverside Theater as an usher, and it was a way to find, like, I was a college student on a budget. I could go see free shows at the Riverside Theater.
Nice.
It's just a great place to be. So I guess my advice would be that joyful balance. Make sure to focus in the classroom, but bring in your personal passions and have fun along the way.
That's excellent. How do you think that students should position themselves now in this sort of AI-driven world?
That's a great question. I think it depends on where they'd like to land in this AI world. Certainly being a person that has awareness and comfort with using this technology. It doesn't matter what major you are, if you're in nursing or business or engineering, you have to have awareness that these tools exist and comfort in using them alongside your work. That would be the quick summary. Depending on where they'd like to go, I think that's a very personal decision. And you don't have to land at your dream job, or where you don't have to have some expectation of where you want to go. I never thought I would be at Google, and I don't think when I was a sophomore or junior or senior, that was my dream job. I actually think every step along my career has been a moment where I've sort of embraced it as part of my life, as part of my dream. But my first internship at Brady Corporation, I made web applications and made people's lives easier. I loved that job. I loved working at ResNet and MLH, helping students get connected with their laptops. I think knowing that it's just a journey, that's part of it, is sort of the fun of not having some crazy target in mind, saying like, this is what I'm going to do. This is the end all be all.
Land here.
Exactly. I don't think it ends up that way. I mean, maybe for some people. I say oftentimes that people think about careers. If you see people that land at Google, some people think that there's like Doogie Howser talent, and they go through life being like child genius, and they end up in their dream job. And I've worked at Google for 13 years, and I have not yet met a Doogie Howser. I think everyone's path is unique, and it's kind of what makes the company so special. A coworker of mine, his name's Trevor, he always gave me this example of saying, when you're working anywhere, or when you're in a classroom or at work, you should consider people as being different colors of a palette, and then you can draw a painting. And it's something that sticks with me, that anecdote is like, you don't want all of the color blue. You don't want a bunch of like-minded, only that sort of dimension. The real value comes from having all of these different colors along the way. So I'm grateful I'm grateful that I didn't ever have that feeling of that pressured feeling of I have to land this job for the dream situation. And that would be really stressful. Right?
Yeah, I totally agree.
Students should know that it'll be a path that they get to navigate, and they'll find their dream path along the way. And there'll be a lot of jobs. I haven't met someone from my graduating class yet who has stayed at the same company their entire career. There are some people that can say, I stayed at Brady for over a decade, and I've been at Google for over a decade as well. I am the minority. Like most people make multiple pivots and navigations. To scratch that itch for me, I use continuing education. I've gone back to school several times. I also was an adjunct professor here at MSOE. I loved that sort of experience. It's like having that ability to have a day job and then something else to trigger a different part of my brain was really helpful.
Wow, nice. When I've been to like conferences and other people talking about AI and how it's affecting certain disciplines like computer science in particular, I've seen a lot of developers from major companies like GitHub and Meta and Microsoft and even Google say, "Oh, I haven't written a line of code for months now," and so I guess my question is, where do you see this going? Like, what is it? What is the experience that students should expect, and who's architecting systems? Who's actually writing manually code, and when do you decide when to do what or the other?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think if you ask like how things are changing or what things will look like, I used to always have this thought exercise of what will things look like in a couple of years, 2 or 3 years. And in this AI world, I feel like every 3 months we're having a new milestone of what things look like. So to your comments about someone saying I haven't written a line of code in X amount of weeks, I think the fluency of a software engineer knowing what good code looks like and what bad code looks like is super, super critical. And I think the way that code is generated will change over time. I have loved watching, I come from an audio background, so I've loved watching people speak to their computer about a task that they'd like to do, whether it's even designing a front end for a website or being very particular and specific about improving an AI model. And they can just speak to their computer and their IDE can understand that request and generate code for that software engineer or that research scientist. That's really fun to see. I've been in pair programming situations where people are literally recording a conversation between two engineers and then tasking Gemini to write the code based on
interesting.
Which is so cool to watch.
Right.
And I also see like something in Silicon Valley in general is you'll see a person using tons and tons of tabs of their browser, kicking off 17 different ideas just to see what they'll look like and being able to quickly prototype something. Instead of having to work, a week or two on one of the prototypes or two of the prototypes and having to pick between A or B, I think it's a really cool time to be able to pick between A through Z of all the options. That's really cool. That's been fun. The pace of development and the pace of change is definitely changing. And agentic AI is exciting for software engineers or anyone. Like the example I gave before in terms of all the goals that you have as a person, I think AI can help you use those sort of achieve those sort of goals. So an agentic AI tool can be part of all of your life. It can help you write code, sure. It can write a document or respond to your email, absolutely. It can take 5 different pictures of your family and everyone's blinking in one of them, and it can adjust and find the perfect combination of that video or of that photo. All of that is cool, but the big piece that I'm most excited about is it feels like a way to supercharge me towards my goals. So
I really like that.
I want to turn it back to you. What's your favorite AI tool that you've used so far in this journey?
Oh, I love that question. This is going to sound somewhat generic because my background is computer science, and so I have been using Claude Code, but I also have a PhD, so I do research.
Nice.
And this is the one thing I was thinking about it. It was sort of like what you were saying. I'm researching a particular thing, and it allowed me to generate multiple experiments and wrote the code for me. And as a grad student, I absolutely would have written the code. And I've written code for decades. And so for me, it wasn't about, the research is not about writing code. The research is trying to see what the results are and making sure that the code is correct, obviously, so that I know that what it's producing is correct or not.
Right.
And so I think for me, that was one of the earlier aha moments, I can see how this really can accelerate certain kinds of science or certain kinds of research that we might be doing. I still have to do the hard thinking and come up with the ideas and and figure out like what the plan of attack is and things like that, interpret the results. But yeah, not having to write the code for that. It's kind of incredible.
Yeah. And I love that example of being able to supercharge you. You could write the code and you're saying like, you know what? That's not the whole point of this.
Right.
I'm trying to get to the actual result. And an exciting thing for me in this area is seeing all of these avenues, knowing what's possible with these tools, which you do if you're using them. Like you see that tip of iceberg, like, wow, I don't have to spend so much time writing this mundane code. So I can actually, instead of doing just one experiment, I could maybe do 5. There's other things in my life where I wrote web code for a while. I haven't written code at Google and for years and years, and it's been a long time. But I know the basics of how I would like to do things. And sometimes if I wanted to write a small application, I would say, that would be nice. Wouldn't it be great if an application existed like this? Mm-hmm. And I don't have to actually write it. I just have to know that it can be written by one of these AI tools. It has changed my life a ton. So usually when I think about like any daily life activity that I'm doing, you wouldn't like scour the internet looking for an application that helps you do it. Mm-hmm. But being able to write a short paragraph or even a half a page of really specific context of what you'd like the application to do can be kind of mind-blowing. I was talking with a friend who was moving from one house to another, and she was putting things in boxes. And as she was doing that, she's like, I should have thought about some sort of way to like have barcodes on every box. So that way I could prioritize unpacking in my new house because this is going to be so much work. I said, so you'd like an application that you could just like take a picture of each of the boxes with the smartphone, take a picture of each thing you're putting in the box. As I was on the phone with her, I just spoke that into Gemini. It created a scan box application that used Google image recognition. And as you would take pictures of boxes, it didn't even need barcodes. It would just use the label on the outside of the box and say, the white box that says MSOE contains the following 8 items. And it was searchable and easy.
Amazing.
I never would have done that before.
Right.
And it saved a lot of time.
Yeah.
And my niece and nephew are visiting San Francisco, and I wanted to make it feel something like connected to home. So I made a scavenger hunt app and I said, find cool items to visit in San Francisco, but relate them back to Milwaukee. So
nice.
We went to the SF MoMA, and then it shows in this scavenger hunt application, the Milwaukee Art Museum. It says, these are both museums.
Right.
And all of those like little connections, it was so fun for them to see this. And it was a quick personal connection moment. And there's no way I would have, if I thought of the idea, I'm not going to spend 2 weeks writing a design document, coming up with the UX, deploying a database, and all of that was done with AI. It was really cool.
Yeah, it's one of the things I liked in your talk is that you were sort of saying everyone's a builder now, right? Everyone can create something, and you don't have to be a coder necessarily. And a similar story is my wife was asking me about a particular app, and she said, "Oh, do you think we can get AI to do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, we just have to let's sit down and talk about what we want it to actually do, and then we'll generate it over the weekend." So that's some of our weekend plans.
I love
build
that.
An app.
So now I'm going to tell you that the next time you have that conversation, you can say, "You know what? Let's actually turn on Gemini Audio and have it listen as we talk through the plans."
Great idea.
And it can even do a little Q&A. And I'm telling you, it will change your life in terms of how quickly and easily things can happen. And it's only going to get better. I think that Will Smith's spaghetti AI video was so popular because the first version of that was so bad. And now it's like this ongoing test of how the stuff gets better and better. It's an exciting thing. If you look back 1 year ago, I don't think people would have realized how helpful it was for AI to generate code to write these little applications. And I definitely don't look into the future too far with AI because things change at a pace so incredible. But I am really excited about agentic AI as a helper for not only to like help me complete work tasks, but just to be able to achieve my human goals, which usually don't deal that much with work, right? Like it's like making sure that I get 50 days skiing every year and that sort of stuff is much more important.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Luke. Really appreciate you stopping by and chatting with us.
Yeah, anytime. I love MSOE. It's great to be back on campus, and just feeling the energy here makes me want to come back more often. So thank you again. Looking forward to the next time.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us to rethink what's possible. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to share it and help us keep the conversation going. To learn more about the Milwaukee School of Engineering, visit msoe.edu.